The ground shakes as if something ancient has awakened beneath the earth. The wind cuts through the air, carrying the smell of burning wood, and before any explanation exists, the sight comes like a blow. Roman walls engulfed in flames, rocks bursting, screams mixed with the dry sound of arrows crossing the night. Children run, mothers stumble, soldiers try to organize a useless defense. High on a hill, a shadow moves first, then another, until dozens of knights emerge as if the abyss itself had spat out an army. Their leader advances slowly, raising his sword as if sentencing an entire world. His face is hard, scarred by wars that no Roman would dare to imagine, and his voice, hoarse and strange, cuts through the silence. Terror has a name. The name that would make emperors lose sleep and entire cities collapse before the battle even began. But what really created this monster that shook Rome was not just strength. It was something deeper, something Rome would never admit. And what happens next makes it even darker. They first appeared as rumors, as stories whispered by merchants who trembled at the memory of what they saw on the steps. Then they came like living storms, horsemen who looked like part of the wind itself, archers who could shoot without touching the ground, men who lived longer on saddles than in their own villages. To Rome, they were like creatures who came from a world without borders. But between all of them, something different was born. A boy who observed, studied, and absorbed the violence around him as if breathing. His name didn't mean anything yet, but his ambition was already burning. He grew up surrounded by wars, where childhood was a non-existent luxury and death was a constant neighbor. While others learned to survive, he learned to dominate. While many fought out of necessity, he saw in the battle a path, almost a destination. Nothing about him seemed casual. Every blow, every fall, every pain shaped a future that the Romans never foresaw. They didn't know. But one day, this kid would make entire empires tremble. When he finally set foot on Roman soil as part of a diplomatic deal, he did not arrive as an ordinary hostage. He arrived as someone who observes in silence, taking in everything. The brightness of the cities, the discipline of the legions, the arrogance of the senators, the corridors where cruel decisions were made with the coldness of those who play dice. Many young barbarians sent to Rome returned, dazzled. Not him. He came back armed, not of swords, but of knowledge. He learned the language of the enemies, their codes, their internal quarrels. He discovered that Rome looked giant, but it was full of cracks. Rival generals, corrupt politicians, leaders too fragile to control the growing chaos. And when he returned to the steppes, he was not the same. He was no longer just a warrior of the land without borders. He was someone who understood the mind of the enemy. But there was one obstacle that made that future uncertain. His own brother, Bleda, and the fate of the two would decide the fate of the world. When his uncle died, power fell into the hands of two brothers who walked side by side, but never in the same direction. Attila and Bleda ruled together, but coexistence was a minefield. Distrust grew like a weed, silent and inevitable. Bleda was looking for stability, agreements, calm, while Attila saw the world as a board waiting to be turned. He couldn't bear to divide anything, least of all an empire. Until one day, Bleda was simply no longer there. The official version spoke of accident, of battle, of destiny. But among the whispers of the tents, the story was different. Many believed that Attila had removed the only obstacle between him and total dominance. True or not, the result was the same. The army now had a single leader. With his brother out of the way, he didn't just take the throne, he devoured it. And the world, which barely knew his name, was about to learn to fear him. But the first demonstration of what was to come had not even begun. With absolute command in hand, he transformed his people into something Rome had never faced. It was no longer a collection of nomadic tribes. It was a living machine shaped by speed, terror, and almost surgical precision. Attila reorganized everything from cavalry formations to how they spread rumors before attacking. He understood that sometimes fear breaks down more walls than any battering ram. Romeo of the East felt this first. The emperor, frightened by the growing strength of the invaders, preferred to buy peace rather than confront them. Gold flowed like rivers into Attila's coffers. Every payment was a humiliation that eroded Roman dignity. But there was a fatal error in this strategy, feeding the hunger of someone who was never satisfied. Each tribute paid only made Attila bolder. He didn't just want wealth, he wanted to bend empires, to impose his name as a sentence. And when he realized the internal divisions of Rome, I knew it was time to strike mercilessly. But what he did next would frighten the Roman world even more. The cities of the East began to feel the weight of the approaching storm. Attila attacked like a predator who knows his prey's every move. His troops glided across the Roman borders with deadly precision, burning villages, destroying walls, and leaving a single message in their wake. Resistance was futile. Each city that fell fueled his reputation, and soon his name traveled faster than his own knights. Constantinople, the most protected jewel in the East, trembled. Its walls were legendary, but even stone seems fragile when fear has already corroded the hearts of those who defend it. Reports said that Roman soldiers dropped their weapons only upon hearing rumors that the Huns were near. Mothers threatened mischievous children using the name of Attila, as if he were a shadow that crossed doors. But despite the devastation around, the capital resisted. The power of the walls repelled the attacks, and Attila, irritated, realized that he would spend more time there than he wished. So he did what Rome never expected. He attacked by the pocket, demanding tribute so absurd that they humiliated the emperor with every coin sent. And this humiliation, it was just the beginning. While Constantinople bled in gold, Attila grew stronger than ever. Each bag of coins sent by the emperor was more than payment. It was a reminder that Rome, the giant of the past, no longer had the courage to face him, and it ignited something deeper in him, the desire to crush not only cities, but symbols. It was time to turn our gaze to the other side of the Roman world. The West was in internal ruins, weak emperors, rival generals, an empire torn apart by disputes. Attila saw there a perfect prey, but the fuse of the war came from an almost absurd detail, a letter. Honoria, the sister of Emperor Valentinian III, sought secret help to escape an arranged marriage and offered her hand to Attila. For others, it would just be a scandal. For him, it was the ideal excuse. He declared her to be his legitimate bride and demanded half of the empire as a dowry. Rome refused, and Attila had what he wanted, an official reason for the invasion. The West did not yet know, but the worst chapter was about to begin. The march towards Gaul began like distant thunder. Then it became an earthquake. Allied tribes joined the Huns, forming a sea of warriors who crossed the Rhine with a fury the Romans never imagined they would face again. Cities that once flourished under Roman rule collapsed within days. Metz turned to ashes. Others tried to resist, but succumbed to the brutal shock of arrows, spears, and fires that devoured entire walls. Terror was spreading even before the army arrived. People fled, rumors grew, and each victory of the Huns made Gaul more desperate. However, in the midst of this collapse, a name emerged that Rome could still trust: Flavius Aetius, a general who knew the Huns from the inside, who knew how they thought and how they killed. He understood that Rome alone would not survive. Then he did the unthinkable. He united Romans, Visigoths, and other enemy tribes into a single alliance. It was an unlikely coalition, but it was all that remained. and this union would lead to the bloodiest confrontation of the time. The Catalonian camps became the scene of a fury that Europe would never forget. On one side, the dark tide of the Huns, accustomed to crushing everything in their path. On the other, the unlikely alliance formed by Aetius, Romans, Visigoths, and tribes that until yesterday hated each other, now united by the fear of disappearing. When the two armies collided, the earth seemed to shake. Screams, steel, dust, blood, everything mingled in a living storm. The battle had no rhythm. It was pure chaos. Thousands fell in the first moments. Theodoric, leader of the Visigoths, was crushed to death in the confusion, but his death set his men on fire, who fought as if their very existence depended on that last breath. For the first time, Attila felt real resistance. He pressed, tested, advanced. But nothing broke through the desperate barrier of the allies. Realizing the impasse, he retreated to a makeshift fortress of Kars, trying to lure Aesio into a trap. But the Roman general did not fall, and this mistake would be costly. It was the beginning of the breaking of the invincibility of the Scourge of God. The retreat from Gaul did not erase Attila, it only reignited his fury. In 452, he invaded Italy as a doom march. Aquileia tried to resist, but fell under a siege so cruel that his name became synonymous with utter destruction. Entire cities surrendered before they even saw the enemy. The way to Rome was open, and nothing seemed able to stop the man who turned empires into dust. But then, just as the eternal city awaited his sentence, something impossible happened. Attila retreated. An encounter with Pope Leo III, shrouded in mystery, legend, and fear, turned the tide. Sickness, pressure, a supernatural vision? Nobody knows. It is only known that the Scourge of God, the terror of the emperors, has retreated, and soon after, death overtook him so suddenly that he became a legend. Without its leader, its empire crumbled like sand between its fingers. Rival tribes destroyed it, and the Huns disappeared from history as if they had been swallowed up by the very chaos they created. If this story has marked you, like, comment, and subscribe. This helps the channel to continue bringing hidden truths from Rome.